Today's lesson is solving the global water crisis. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're going to continue to talk about the global water crisis. And we want to solve the global water crisis. Yes, we're having trouble with water supplies, with droughts and flooding. But if we all work together, if we all pitch in, we should be able to get through this crisis together. Now, last time we talked about some statistics that painted an alarming picture, didn't we?
Yes, we talked about how droughts have affected the food supply chain and how it's impacting the livelihood of farmers and a lot of other problems that have been caused.
Exactly. And of course, our food supply chain will be affected as well because water is used in agriculture. And we don't want to have water supplies mismanaged. We want people to manage our water supplies safely and effectively. And in the future, of course, a lot of people in the world, if not everybody, will be affected by this crisis in the year 2050. So now's the time to act. And now's the time to listen to today's lesson. And then we'll come back to discuss it.
Fortunately, solutions to the water shortage crisis do exist. Israel, for example, has built a number of desalination plants to turn seawater into drinking water. The country plans to expand this approach by building a pipeline that will desalinate water from the Mediterranean before pumping it into the Sea of Galilee, a large lake in northern Israel. It also treats and recycles almost all of its wastewater, putting it to use in the agricultural industry.
大家好，第一部分我们看到单字 expand。这个字是动词，意思是扩大、发展或是扩张。例如 The owners of the business have plans to expand to other cities. 那间企业的所有人计划要扩大发展到其他城市。或者 A balloon expands as it is filled with air. 气球充气时会变大。另外补充这个字的名词 expansion, E-X-P-A-N-S-I-O-N, expansion, 指的是扩充或是扩展。像是 We have plans for the expansion of our house, such as an additional bedroom and bathroom. 我们有扩建房屋的计划，例如增加卧室和浴室。或是 The expansion of the metal tube was caused by heat. 那根金属管因遇热而扩张。接下来我们看到形容词 agricultural， 它的意思是农业的或是以农业为主的。举例来说There are more than 330 million acres of land used for agricultural purposes in the United States. 美国有3亿3千万英亩以上的土地作为农耕用途。另外补充这个字的名词 agriculture, A-G-R-I-C-U-L-T-U-R-E, agriculture, 它指的是农业或是农耕。例如 Most of the land in this region is used for agriculture. 这区域大部分的土地都被用于农业用途。也可以说 Domestication of animals preceded the development of agriculture. 人类驯养动物的发展早于农业的发展。
So now we're going to look at some solutions that people have come up with, or countries have come up with, to solve the problem of water shortage. Fortunately, solutions to the water shortage crisis do exist. Israel, for example, has built a number of desalination plants to turn seawater into drinking water.
Exactly. So Israel is a country in the Middle East, and it's quite dry there. There are a lot of deserts there. And I believe Israel has had desalination plants for a long time, but they're going to build more of them, or they have built more of those desalination plants to turn seawater into fresh water or drinking water. Now, desalination means turning salty water into water that does not have salt in it. Notice in that word we've got the word sal, S-A-L, which is Latin for salt. So desalination, getting rid of the salt in water. And of course, these are facilities or plants which process seawater and turn it into drinking water.
That's right. The country plans to expand this approach by building a pipeline that will desalinate water from the Mediterranean before pumping it into the Sea of Galilee, a large lake in northern Israel. So even though this body of water is called the Sea of Galilee, it's actually a large lake and it's located in northern Israel. And the plan is to build a pipeline. So a pipeline is a long underground pipe that carries water or gas or some other substance from one place to another. And here what they want to do is use this pipeline, build it first, and then use it to carry water from the Mediterranean Sea and into the Sea of Galilee.
Right, so of course they've got this approach or this method or this solution to water shortages, and that is desalination plants, and they are going to expand this approach. To expand just means to make something larger. Maybe your company is doing quite well in Taiwan, so you're going to expand to the international market. And in this case, yes, we've got this pipeline that stretches over many miles, and I guess the pipeline is capable of desalinating water, of getting rid of the salt in the water from the Mediterranean Sea, which is around Italy and Spain and places like that. And then the water, fresh water, will be pumped into the Sea of Galilee, which, as Helen said, is a large lake in northern Israel. It also treats and recycles almost all of its wastewater, putting it to use in the agricultural industry. So they recycle the water. If you use water at home, you use the water to wash your clothes or to take a shower or even to drink or cook with. Well, the wastewater is collected and then it is recycled. So wastewater is the water you get rid of after you use it. Wastewater would come from flushing the toilet or the water that goes down the drain after you take a bath.
Yes, and they're going to put this wastewater to use. When you put something to use, you're using something basically for a sensible purpose, a purpose that will bring benefits to you. So it's the opposite of wasting. Putting something to use means you're not wasting that thing. Now, if somebody wins the lottery and wins millions of dollars, then I would hope that that person would put that money to use or put it to good use instead of wasting it. So they could perhaps donate the money, give the money or some of it to poor people. That would be putting it to use. Here we're talking about putting wastewater to use, and the wastewater will be used in a positive, beneficial way in the agricultural industry. So agricultural refers to the activity of farming. So agricultural industry is the industry related to farming, to growing crops, to feeding livestock, and things like that.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of today's lesson. Let's move on to another part of the world and find out what they're doing in Singapore.
Singapore also makes the most of its limited water resources by reusing almost every drop. Wastewater is filtered and then treated with UV light to make it safe for drinking. While this water is primarily used for industrial processes, it is added to reservoirs in times of drought. The city-state has also been promoting water conservation, encouraging people to use water-saving devices and teaching water-saving tips.
第二部分我们看到单字 filter 这个字是动词，意思是过滤。例如 The hikers filtered water from the stream before drinking it. 健行者将溪水过滤后才饮用。或是 The water in the fish tank is regularly filtered to keep it fresh and clean. 鱼缸里的水会定期过滤，以确保新鲜干净。另外，这个字当作名词时，意思是过滤器或是滤镜。举例来说 You should buy a filter if you want to drink tap water in Taipei. 如果你要在台北生饮自来水，你应该买个过滤器。又或者说 My camera app has several filters, including one that makes colors look brighter. 我相机的应用程式有好几种滤镜，包括一个让颜色看起来更亮的滤镜。接下来我们看到名词 reservoir， 它指的是水库或是蓄水池。例如 After the rainy season, the reservoir was nearly filled to capacity. 雨季过后，水库几乎满载。 或者我们可以说 The town's water supply comes from a huge reservoir nearby. 该镇的供水来自附近的一个巨大水库。
So in the last part, we looked at Israel and what this country was doing to combat water shortages. And now we're going to move on to Singapore. Now, Singapore also makes the most of its limited water resources by reusing almost every drop. So we know that Singapore, being a very small country and being a country that's surrounded by salt water, its water resources are limited. So what the country has decided to do is to make the most of its limited water supply. When you make the most of something, you're taking advantage of that thing and trying to get as much as you can out of that thing.
Yeah, make the most of something. For example, maybe you got a job, but you don't like it. It's a dead-end job, but you decide, well, I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to learn some various things from working at this company, even though I don't like my coworkers, but I'm still going to make the most of my situation. I'm not going to complain about it with my friends and family all the time. So yes, indeed, Singapore makes the most of its limited water resources, and it reuses almost every drop of water. Now, for example, a wastewater is filtered and then treated with UV light to make it safe for drinking. If you filter something, that means you send a liquid through something and then the filter holds back the bad things and lets the good things through. Okay, so you might have a water filter in your home so that your drinking water is fresh and that it doesn't have nasty things inside it. And remember, there I'm using it as a noun, actually, a water filter, that's a noun, but here filter is being used as a verb, which means you actually filter the water or you take the bad things out of the water by running the water through a filter.
Yes, and once that wastewater has been filtered and all of the objects, the tiny objects, solid parts have been removed from the water, the wastewater is then treated with UV light. UV refers to ultraviolet light, and ultraviolet light can be used to treat things, to make things less harmful. You can kill bacteria, perhaps, or things that might be unhealthy if they get in your body. So in this process, wastewater is basically treated in a very detailed and multi-step process.
Exactly. So they're using UV light. UV light can kill nasty things in the water. I knew of some people using UV light to kill the germs on money, for example. Of course, money passes from hand to hand in society. There might be viruses on the coins you get in change from the convenience store, so sometimes they use UV light to kill the bacteria, and that's what they do in Singapore to the water. And while this water is primarily used for industrial processes, it is added to reservoirs in times of drought. So yes, they filter the water, they treat it with UV light, and mostly they use it for industrial processes. They use it in factories because factories use a lot of water. When they're manufacturing things, sometimes the machines get really hot, so they need to constantly spray water on it. So yes, factories use a lot of water, and that water is mainly used in factories, but it is also added to reservoirs just in case they need it in other times, especially if there are times of drought. A reservoir, of course, is a place that stores water outside in a large area. Like here in Taiwan, of course, we've got the Fei Cui Reservoir near Wulai, and there's also the Sherman Reservoir out in, is that Taoyuan? Is it out that far? I think it is.
Right, and the city-state has also been promoting water conservation, encouraging people to use water-saving devices and teaching water-saving tips. So here, Singapore is being referred to as a city-state because Singapore is both a city and it's also a state in that it's a country, it's an independent country. So we call Singapore a city-state. And Singapore, the city-state, has been promoting water conservation. When you conserve something, you are keeping it from going away or from being destroyed. So conservation is the careful use of, in this case, water, but it could be other resources as well. It could be electricity, it could be gas, anything that is needed.
You could have forest conservation, protecting trees in forests and things like that. And the government also encourages people to use water-saving devices. And they also teach people water-saving tips. So sometimes we have devices that save water, shower heads that don't spray so much water on you so you don't waste so much water. And there are other such devices that do these kinds of things. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the third and final part.
These solutions will go a long way towards solving water scarcity, but they don't deal with the root cause of the problem. If we are to truly tackle the water crisis, we have to address the behaviors that contribute to climate change in the first place.
最后第三部分我们看到动词 tackle， 它的意思是处理。举例来说 Vincent tackled the difficult task without a complaint. Vincent 毫无怨言地处理了这个困难任务。或者我们可以说If we keep calm and cooperate, we can tackle any challenges we may face. 如果我们保持冷静、同心协力，就能对付可能面对的一切挑战。
So now we're going to conclude our discussion on solving the global water crisis. Now, these solutions, as we have been talking about solutions, particularly those in Singapore and Israel, so these solutions will go a long way toward solving water scarcity. But they don't deal with the root cause of the problem. Here we have the phrase go a long way, which basically means to be successful. These solutions will be successful or go a long way towards solving the problem of water scarcity. I can also say that a smile goes a long way towards making people feel welcomed and loved. All you have to do is smile and be kind, and people will feel better for it.
Yep, it does a lot. It makes a great contribution. Maybe you've had problems with a coworker or something, and you finally decide to apologize, and an apology can go a long way to restoring your relationship. And indeed, these solutions will do a lot. They will go a long way towards saving water scarcity. We'll be able to use less water and not suffer so much. But still, they don't deal with the root cause of the problem. The root cause is the main problem. Of course, we're trying to use water less, but the reason we have so much less water is for another reason, and that's the root cause. That, of course, is climate change.
Yes, if we are to truly tackle the water crisis, we have to address the behaviors that contribute to climate change in the first place. So we are trying to tackle the water crisis. To tackle means to make an organized and determined attempt to deal with a problem. So, for instance, a city might experience a lot of acts of crime. And if the police department does not try to tackle this problem, then it's never going to solve it.
Exactly. So that's what to tackle means, to handle something, to take care of it, etc. Tackle also occurs in sports. In American football, if you knock the other player down who has the ball, then you're tackling him. And of course, you can tackle a player in soccer, but that just means you're trying to get possession of the ball. You're not trying to knock the player down. But here we're talking about solving the water crisis. And if we want to do that, if we are able to tackle the water crisis, if we can solve it, we have to address the behaviors that contribute to climate change in the first place. So at the beginning, we need to handle climate change. We need to figure out exactly why the temperature of the Earth is changing and whether human beings are causing that. And if we are, then we should figure out ways to stop doing that so we can live for millions of years into the future. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny， 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分的第二句提到，以色列已建造多座海水淡化厂，来将海水转化成饮用水。那这边出现两个重点，第一个，文中是用 a number of desalination plants 来表达多座海水淡化厂。那我们这边是要比较一下 a number of 跟 an amount of 的用法。a number of 是用来修饰可数名词的量，那它的用法是 a number of 加上复数名词，去表达说好几个什么什么，许多的什么什么。那么 an amount of 则是用来修饰不可数名词的量，可能修饰像时间啊、金钱啊、水等等。那这时候用法就是 an amount of 加上不可数名词。那我们可以在 amount 或者是 number 前面加入形容词，像 high, large, great 等等，去表达大量的什么，或者是你也可以加入 small 之类的，去表达少数的、少量的什么。举例来说 ，a large number of tourists 就是大量的观光客。A small number of students 少数的学生。A large amount of money 大量的金钱。A small amount of information 是少量的资讯。好，再看到第二个重点呢，课文是用 turn seawater into drinking water 来表达将海水转化成饮用水。那么 turn A into B 表示将 A 变成 B， 被动用法是 A be turned into B。我们就来造两个例句。The witch turned the princess into a squirrel. 女巫把公主变成松鼠了。或者是说 The old factory was turned into a museum. 那栋老旧工厂被改造成一间博物馆了。好，我们接着读到课文第二部分第一句。新加坡也借由重复使用几乎每一滴水来充分利用其有限的水资源。文中用到一个用法是 make the most of something， 是表达充分利用什么什么，或者是从什么当中获得最大收益。我们这边要补充几个意思相似的用法。第一个是 get the most out of something， 这是表达从什么当中获得最大收获，充分利用某事物。举例来说 With careful planning, you will be able to get the most out of your savings。 有了仔细的规划，你就能充分利用自己的储蓄，从中得到最大收获。好，那第二个补充的是 make the best of something，它也带有充分利用的语义。不过这个片语呢，通常是指说遇到不方便或不愉快的情境，仍然设法善用你手边有的资源。也就是说啊，在不利的情况下尽力而为，去充分发挥可用之处。假设你跟家人朋友去离岛玩好了，那你要回来的时候不小心碰到这种航班啊、船班被取消，这时候做什么事也不能改变什么嘛。也许你可以说Let's just make the best of it and do something fun. 我们就随遇而安，充分利用这样的情况来做点好玩的事情吧。好，以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Expand. The author wants to expand her short story into a novel. Pipeline. The proposed oil pipeline was not built as a result of environmental concerns. Agricultural.Bananas, mangoes, and pineapples are among Taiwan's major agricultural products. Filter. Kidneys filter blood to remove waste products from the body. Reservoir. The heavy rains increase the amount of water in the city's reservoirs. Conservation. The conservation efforts are intended to protect Australia's coral reefs. Tackle.The government hopes its new program will help tackle youth unemployment.
Discussion starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, do you think water conservation efforts alone will be sufficient to address water shortages? Why or why not?
I do not think that water conservation efforts alone will be sufficient to address water shortages, given that we have to still deal with the problem of climate change and droughts and and rising temperatures.
Well, I think that water conservation efforts alone will be sufficient. They will have to be sufficient to address water shortages because I think climate change is too late to solve. We've already pumped too much CO2 into the atmosphere. It's going to be up there for decades. And people aren't going to stop their bad habits now. They're just going to blame other people. So the only choice we have is to conserve water because global warming is never going to go away.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.